Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we're taking a look at the new structure deck that we received in Duel Links, Raidacross the Lionhearted. So the structure deck we got is a bit weird. First off, it doesn't have any super impactful cards. The only generically good card I think is Rightful Magic, which is a pretty decent spell card. So if we have two or more face-up monsters with the same attribute on our field, one face-up monster on your opponent's field loses 600 attack till the end of this turn. So that's pretty good. 600 is a decent stat decrease. The only issue I have with this card is, will you be able to find room for it in your deck? So spell and trap room in your deck at the moment is quite tight. A lot of people are only running 4 spell traps at the moment, some people going up to maybe 7. Now, if you consider that one of those slots is automatically taken up by Widespread Ruin, we've now got 3 to 6 spots to work with. Then it depends on whether you want to be playing traps or spells. Traps are generally a lot more useful because something like the Barrier or something like a well-timed Phantom Bind can destroy your opponent's monster as well as protect your monster from destruction. Warriors, for example, are going to be on Dark Ruler's Battle Slash, and thus I do not think are necessarily going to find room for something like Rightful Magic. And any deck making good use of the Barrier or Phantom Bind are probably going to want to use those over that as well. Music Princess Recital could probably come out if your deck specifically relies on that. I think very few decks are actually relying on this card. When we look at our spells, it's a bit more flexible. Some decks are still on Pierce, some decks are playing Ghost Cyclone, a lot of decks are on Monster Reincarnation, but one of the new most popular spell cards is Hammer Crush to go with the Hammer Crush Deal skill, which a lot of people have now realized is very, very powerful. So if you've already got 2 Hammer Crush in your deck, as well as a Monster Reincarnation and Widespread Ruin, that's already 4 spaces used up. If you've got maybe a couple of Barriers or maybe a couple of Phantom Binds, you've now got a lot of spell traps in your deck, and just finding room for Rightful Magic is quite tough. That being said, Rightful Magic is very good to play around the Barrier. The Barrier obviously weakens your monster's attack by 400, but if you weaken your opponent's monster by 600, their 400 weakened to your monster still only puts them at a 200 deficit, which a lot of time means your monster will still be able to win out in the end. But there are obviously some situations where this will backfire. If you need to use Rightful Magic to attack over their monster, then the Barrier still could crash or let their monster win the fight, so you got to be a little bit careful with it. But outside of Rightful Magic, one of the other generically okay cards, I think, is Magic Juggler. So this card will eventually be half of a fusion, eventually. So this will become part of a Cyborg fusion, which, again, we'll talk about that a little bit as we come closer to actually coming out. But right now, this is a level 4 light attribute spellcast type monster with 1400 attack. And spellcasters don't really have good light options at the moment, so this is fine for that. Now, do you need this to be a spellcaster? Because at the moment, a lot of these spellcaster decks, like the SAR, are just playing other light cards like Thunder the Thunder. So you don't need this, but it's nice. And its 1400 attack can sometimes be very relevant. So if we look at the boss monster of the deck, we have Raidacross Hero of the Dawn. Now, notably, this card did next to nothing when it first came out in the modern Rush game. But it does get a fusion later. And if that fusion, which is Raidacross Ash, does come to Duel Links sooner rather than later, this card will actually be pretty good. But it has to come out very, very early, like the first wave of fusion support, otherwise it will slowly get power crept. But on its own, this card is a bit mid. 2100 attack, 1500 defense, that is a similar stat line to 7's Road Magician. But its effect is we can shuffle 2 spellcaster type monsters from our graveyard into the deck to special summon up to 2 level 5 or lower spellcaster type monsters from our hand face up to our field. Now, obviously, in Rush, we can normal summon as many times as we want. So special summoning 2 level 4 or lowers is meaningless. That doesn't do anything. So basically, the only real way to use this card is on level 5s. And we only have 2 of those available to us now, and they are 2 of the other new cards we've got. So the first one is Hilt, Bearer of the Noble Arms. The requirement none, 1 attack position warrior type monster on your field gains 600 attack to the end of this turn. Now 600, again, is relevant. You can put your Raidacross up to 2700. Now 27, notably, is a very bad number, because that still means it will lose a lot to the Barrier, which does really suck. 27 is unfortunately really not a meaningful number. We really wanted this to be 28. 29 would have been ideal, because 29 at least means we can trade with 25s in the Barrier. 3000 is that number we're really aiming to hit to. So 27, not great, but it doesn't have to specifically use with Raidacross. We can also boost other warriors, such as Masaki. Putting him to 21 can actually be very relevant in the right matchup. And then the other new monster we got is Seath, the Scabbard of Noble Arms. So 1700 attack is a little bit more respectable. Still not great. To be honest, with a 1 tribute monster, if it's not got at least 2000, it's terrible. Ideally, you want to hit 2100, but all 2100 monsters are vanillas, so they don't get an effect, which does kind of suck. But we can place 4 warrior and or spellcaster type monsters, so notably this is either, but Raidacross has to be spellcasters, and sometimes when you sequence your plays, you have to shuffle the right monsters into your deck using your Seath, otherwise you will lock your Raidacross out of using its effect that turn. That's very important. But we can special summon 1 level 7 warrior monster from our hand face up to our field. So naturally, this is going to be Raidacross. But notably, we can also use this to summon out Max Raider, because it is a level 7 warrior. So there may be a deck in the future that starts incorporating this card, but a 2400 vanilla I did not think was worth including when my secondary boss monster at the moment is going to be 7's Road Magician. So Seath is pretty good because you can use it to cheat out Raidacross. There have been several times where I've been able to go normal summon 1 monster, tribute it for Seath, use Seath effect to cheat out Raidacross from the hand, then use Raidacross effect to summon out a hilt from my hand. So in this way, you can do a lot with very little, which is very, very good for this deck. I had one game recently where I opened 5 cards. 1 card was a normal summon monster, and the rest were all tribute monsters. So we summoned a monster, tributed it for Seath, used Seath effect to summon out the Raidacross, Raidacross effect summons out the hilt, and then I just had the 7's Road Magician in hand ready for the following turn. And especially when combined with the skill, you could use that to great effect. So what is the skill? We've kind of gone over a lot of the cards in the deck. We haven't talked about the skill yet. So Daybreak Order. This skill can be used if the only monsters in your deck are level 7 or lower spellcaster type or warrior type. Requirement can be activated if you return 1 card from your hand to your deck on your second turn onwards. Notably, this is a mistranslation. This is the second turn onwards, not your second turn onwards. So as long as it's turn 2, you're good to go. Reveal 1 level 5 or 7 attribute monster to your opponent. Add 1 level 5 light attribute monster or Raidacross Hero of the Dawn from your deck to your hand, then you can add Rightful Magic from your deck to your hand once per duel. So the once per duel effect is only on adding Rightful Magic, which is pretty good. As long as you don't draw all of your Rightful Magics ahead of time, you're pretty much good to go with this. And being able to sort out your hand to either find Raidacross or find your hilt or Seath is very, very good. Notably as well, you can also shuffle back a copy of Rightful Magic into your deck, grab out one of the other boys, and then search Rightful Magic out again if you have already drawn 2. So that is a nice little way you can fix it if you do draw out all of your garnets. But the main combo of the deck is basically going to just be that. It is going to be summon out Raidacross, use the effect to get out hilt and Seath, or summon out Seath and use its effect to get out Raidacross. And that is basically as much as you get with this. There isn't really much more to it. The benefit of using the skill is that we can fix our bricky hands because this deck does play a lot of high-level monsters, and we do get easy access to Rightful Magic, which is kind of the way that we're going to win most of our combats, because hilt on its own is not really enough. Making Raidacross to 27 is okay, but like we said before, 27 doesn't beat a ton. Any back row pretty much will stop Raidacross, and then you'll be left with presumably a 1300 hilt and 1700 Seath, which is not the strongest board that we can really come up with. So a lot of the time, Rightful Magic does do a lot of the heavy lifting in this deck specifically. We're also playing 7's Road Magician, the reason being that our skill limits us to only playing warriors and spellcasters, and this is the next best card, or the next best boss monster that we can realistically get our hands on. And 7's Road Magician is fantastic. The only issue with this card is its 2100 attack on the opponent's turn, which is a similar weakness that Raidacross has. But on the offense, this thing can hit 39, which is completely bonkers. On top of the fact that our deck needs to have a large number of spellcasters in it just to make sure that Raidacross's effect is always live. So going through the other cards, we're on 2 Fire Golem. This is because we just want a Fire Attribute Spellcaster, because again, we can only play Spellcasters and Warriors, and we need Spellcasters for Raidacross effect anyway. And Fire for 7's Road Magician. We have the Mystic Dealer. Again, we can discard any of our Spellcasters to draw a card. It's also the Water Attribute for the deck. We have Dark Sorcerer, which is our 1500 vanilla, and is dark. We have 3 Masaki. This is in here again to give us a little bit of extra aggression if we feel like we need it. Obviously, Warriors do work with our skill and do work with CS effect, but do not work with Raidacross. And we can also, as we talked about before, boost him with hilt if we feel like we need to. We have our new Magic Juggler as just an extra light monster, but as well just a 1400 beta to give us that little bit of extra aggression that we sometimes want. And then the 1 of Spell Archer, just because getting a wind monster in the graveyard just to get to that 39 can be really helpful sometimes. we're playing 1 copy of Pierce. The reason we're playing this Pierce is because we've got into several situations where we've had multiple 7s road on the field and our opponent just sets 3 pass, and then we're unable to close the game, and then they make a comeback. So Pierce is a really good way to try and end the game. We're only on the 1 copy because it does get a bit bricky. We did have several games where we were trying with 2. We kept opening 2 and it wasn't really working out for us. We're on the 2 copies of Rightful Magic. I don't think we really need a 3rd, but you could probably go up to a 3rd. Primarily, I would say this deck wants as few spell traps as possible in it because it does get a little bit bricky just with all the high levels. We are on basically 6 level 7 monsters and 5 and 6s, which means we have a total of 11 tribute monsters in the deck, so this deck can get quite bricky if you get a little bit unlucky. We can fix some of those hands with Daybreak Order, but not all the time. Then finally, Widespread Ruin, because it's the best card in the game. Why wouldn't you be playing this card? So, overall, I would say this deck is fine. I think this is probably somewhere in tier 3. It's not necessarily rogue. We played a ton of games on this today, and we did win quite a lot of them. Now, not a lot of them were like very clean wins. Some of them were very messy. Some of them were our opponents bricked. Some of them were our opponent's scoops on turn 2. And because of that, we don't actually have a ton of great replays to show, because a lot of our losses were just us bricking, and a lot of our winning was our opponent's bricking. But the deck did have an okay showing. I don't want to say this is completely dead on arrival, but it's definitely not very strong. If you're looking to be playing tournament level decks and you're looking to play very, very strong meta relevant decks, I don't think this is it. So I would not recommend buying this deck because, of course, you can only buy 1 of this deck using gems, and then you have to get the other 2 with real money. I do not think right now this is worth that monetary investment, especially if you are a bit tight on money. I would hold on to your cash until maybe we do get word that Raidacross Ash comes out, and then maybe you think about trying to pick this deck up just to be able to make the fusion. Outside of that, I don't think Rightful Magic is good enough to warrant spending real money on it if you really can't afford it. So I would say it's probably fine without it, and I don't think this card will be a super relevant meta card, but I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. If this deck in general ends up being one of the strongest decks going forward, I will be pleasantly surprised because the deck is very fun to play. I want to specify that. Although I don't think this deck is particularly strong, and I don't think this is even a tier 2 deck, it is very fun to be able to use the skill, fix your hand, cheat out all your guys, summon out your Raidacross, boost it up, use the Rightful Magic, weaken your opponent. It feels there's a lot of moving pieces that all slot together very nicely, and when it does work, it does feel very, very good. But enough of this chit chat, let's jump into the replays so I can show you what I've been talking about.